When it comes to superdelegates, delegates, and electoral college, these are people in place to vote for a president that is assigned some to a state to help put him in office. Being superdelegates can, right from the get-go, being from the start, being before anybody approached them, to who they can decide by actual people coming onto them and talking to them, speaking to them, to see if that is the people that they'd like to politically be affiliated with. Superdelegates can pick anybody they want. Delegates are assigned a specific number to a state. Given the number of people in that state, there's X amount of delegates. The electoral college, on the other hand, given how many people you win from that, is how many votes you get from that, being from them, can turn the tide of an election even if the people's vote is swayed in favor of another individual. This is a way to take away democracy away from the people and move it to individuals that have behind closed doors reasons for voting for that individual. Given Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, when Donald Trump was running in 2016, Bernie couldn't win. No offense to the setup, the way things are, being how people can vote for anybody they want, being for superdelegates, but he had no chance of winning. Being that May, he only had about 56 to 60 of them, give or take around that number of superdelegates. Hillary Clinton, on the other hand, had about 450 to 460 already from the start, from the get-go, before they even started their super PAC, of the donations of they need an X amount of money, usually close to $1 billion, to run for the election, because that's how much money they need to run. Now, one might have had less money than the other, but typically that's about how much they spend, given whenever you're having two political parties verse each other toward the end of the election, given the way things are ran in mainstream media. Now, when you do that, you take away from the word of the American people and who is voting. Being, when people vote, their vote should count toward the president that they desire or want or feel that should be in office because of what they learned. Now, when you do that, you tip the tides by individuals that can be swayed behind closed doors and means by financial bribery or sway by taking them out somewhere like a lobbyist and conning them into voting for you when that's not really who they would vote for unless you came to them and bribed them. This makes for an unfair election given the way voting booths are set up. Electronic elections, being when you vote, you should have a redundancy in format. You should be given a piece of paper when you exit of who you voted for. You should have verifiable proof of who you voted for, and it should be in redundant format of where your vote went, knowing that the vote went there, being that you don't need recounts unless recounts are set by people who actually got into the ballot box and moved the numbers around by having people that are deceased vote, having people that aren't legally abided to this country and living here in these domicile lands of how it's supposed to be. No offense to people that come from outside the country, but that makes it a bit unfair. And other means of people double voting from different states from one to another and getting their double votes in. So voting, there are flaws to it, but if you set up a proper democracy, people will be able to vote for the people they want without any sway of elections or electric booths being set up for another individual to win. When one person's voting for one, their vote gets changed. This has happened over decades in America, and nobody seems to be fixing it. And if that gets fixed, people's votes will matter. But the superdelegates, delegates, and electoral college was a way to control the system, so if they want a president in place that they feel is better, being behind closed doors, being the 1%, that's how they get them elected. Being Gore won the majority vote, but he didn't win the election because of the three set standards in place, being electoral college, superdelegates, and delegates for the state. Now, by doing that, you do take away from the American people. This is clear, as crystal clear as the cleanest water that could possibly be, obviously. And all of you that are hearing this, that might have that job, you know that it shouldn't be swayed like that. People should actually have a proper vote for their president without it being swayed away and taken away from them out of their hands to other individuals that might have means behind closed doors. Now, the last election was set up to say it's who you hate the most, right from the get-go. From the start of the election in 2016, if you hate this person enough, you're going to vote for another individual so that individual couldn't win, that the other one would win because you hate that other individual so much. This is the way the propaganda was set up last time. This time around, you're not seeing anything set up for elections of many people being billboards or signs or anything at all. You're not seeing that anywhere. It's like you already set Trump in place to win the election and nobody else truly matters, and all they're doing is shaking plates and asking for charity whenever they know they're not going to win and that Trump's going to win. Because all of you have made your vote already set saying that Trump should win, being the words that produces from his mouth are sometimes great and profound, but we all know that he doesn't talk like that without any kind of script that he read prior to and or a prompter prior to that arrival of words. He didn't speak anything the way he's speaking prior to 2016, and this is how you know that he's using somebody else's words, being when he ran for president. Straight from the beginning, when he had classical music in the directions he went, he ran for president 2 times, and he took his name right off the ballot because he felt he'd be embarrassed. But this time around, he had a perfect platform. He went to the right people because he has an abundance of money, and with the right direction of words, which are gold, beyond mammon of financial funds, of anything monetary at all, being words are worth more than actual gold, because you can't replace somebody's words if it came from that individual of credit, because that gave a new train of thought. Those are priceless. There's no price for people's words whenever they say something profound, being if it came from them and not from another individual. You're thieving. Now, I love Donald Trump so much. I put 1.5 years of my effort, day in and day out, 12 to 18 hours a day, making sure he was win and typing things up because I had pull behind closed doors. People used to actually, at the beginning of this, given the election when he was running, I could have picked Bernie Sanders, but I knew he couldn't win no matter what I did. And Hillary Clinton was supposed to win, and she got upset that she didn't win, but it's not the individual's fault that helped Trump. It's Trump getting the inside information from the individual so he could win. So it was him. She should be furious with him, not the individual that she was getting information from or the individuals. Being that May, I branched off a tree a little bit. I went down a black hole. But my point of this is that Trump knows, and everybody knows, he's getting scripts from somebody because this is the way it runs. And yes, he wasn't using a prompter when he used to go around and do his stadium talks, being his speeches amongst the people, so all of you would be immersed into his words and you would follow him. Now, whenever you do this and you set up a redundancy format to take it away from the people of an election, you turn it over back to the deep state government, and the government being whoever has the most mammon. Because if somebody comes up to you and says, vote for this person, here's $1 million, do you think that person's going to be honest and fair and have integrity in his heart and say, no, I'm going to vote for the individual I believe? I would say a good 80 to 99% of you out there are easily swayed by bribery and or being conned by measures that gets you ahead further on the totem pole of the world. You don't seem to have any integrity about the people below you. That you don't love the people because you're not working for the people, you're working for yourself. And the reason why I got into the election, because I wanted to change all this. That is what I wanted. I wanted to fix the system for all the people, so everything would be better, so everybody would live under better means and circumstances than they're living currently, because I see all the flaws in your whole system. Being your unemployment, the way you do that, your Social Security. Do you know unemployment? When you're on it and you fall off, it doesn't show the unemployment number. You're not on there no more if you're not getting it. So the unemployment rate is a lot higher than what you're thinking amongst the people, than what is being said on the prompter of the TV being televised to the American people, and or the numbers that come up in digits on the computer It totally is varies different of reality to what you're being told. I don't approve of any of that. I would like the system to be fixed properly so the streets of America are kid friendly. Everything on the streets should be for children. Everything you see should be kid friendly. There should be flowers everywhere. There should be decorations. There should not be billboards of divorce lawyers and jewelry signs every 2 or 3 miles because the divorce rate is so high and families break apart by means and reasonings because of bad atmosphere. And that's typically what happens. That is usually what happens. And I never favored that because I saw that all around me throughout my life. And I wanted to fix the system. Now, I know I veered off, and I'm talking about super delegates, and electoral college and voting, but all of you matter. Every single one of you matter, from the people on the street that are starving to the people that have multi-million dollars or $1 billion in their pocket. Being influenced can go really far, but words are what's worth the most. And when an individual can capitalize on other individuals and take their words, and just because they have mammon, being financial stability, being a monetary fund, that's not fair. And if they can see everything you're doing and cyberstalk you and steal everything from you and put things around you so it doesn't seem like it came from you, that's not fair at all to the American people. Being the way everybody's watched, there is no privacy anymore, and I don't like that. I believe everybody in a proper atmosphere will do the right thing most of the time. Being we all do things a little bit wrong sometimes, we can be bad, but given the better circumstances of atmosphere, of what you're being projected onto and being projected onto you, being if you can be set on a better standards of what your surroundings is, I don't like it how houses are literally 20 feet built next to each other. There should have been more space. Your streets, I don't like the way they're set up. I believe a new type of road system can be innovated and improvised to be put into the system, starting in a city, being electromagnetic roads. Now, cars do have to change. Vehicles would change. They'd still be able to ride around, but they'd go up into a contraption where they'd hover. They wouldn't be going over the ground by an electromagnetic activity, being it's hard for them to figure out, but if you get the right minds together, you can build such roads, and it would not be that difficult. You can make a prototype. There are ways to do that, being electromagnetic current doesn't always have attractions to everything, but yet it can pressurize something to lift something up, so you can then make that be a projectile and fly through the air close to the ground. I even drew up cities of such oceans to be built, so then what you do is that you bring all the animals and everything that's over there that is tame and calm and been bred out of the survival of the fittest atmosphere that they're set in because they have to eat. And then everything would be friendly. You can move things over and make things better, being animals can be bred out of survival of the fittest and they can be fed after a few generations, and then you'd just have calm lions. Now, I trailed off a little bit with everything that I'm saying, but my point of everything is the super delegates, and electoral college should be ran a bit differently the way you do that. It should be about the American people, not the population count, and then you win that X amount of delegates, and it doesn't matter if you have 20 million votes more than another individual, which it's usually not that number, but it usually varies by a certain amount. And this is true. And that's the way it's always been. And now, this time where we're in, these times that we're changing into, needs to be changed. And the American people need somebody that wasn't rich, that worked hard almost all their life, and that has a good heart, and that would be transparent in everything that they're doing, no matter what is said. You won't catch them in the lie. That they'll always be telling you the truth, if the truth needs to be said. And if you're asking them, they tell you the truth, no matter what, rather, being said. This needs to happen soon before our country and other countries are destroyed. Because the people that are rich, and if you're born into power, your personality is different rather than a person that is just a working citizen and work their way up and tries to work their way up, but yet is learned. It's just different. Their heart of hearts is different than all of yours. Unless you change and you try to make yourself change, you can't be on the same level than an average American that is working hard and or that it becomes learned and studies and that has a heart of hearts. It's different. And Donald Trump, I believed in you. I believed in you utterly, totally, and wholeheartedly when I was helping you with the election. And Hillary Clinton, I meant no foul behavior towards you. I meant no foul words, and I meant no foul actions to hurt you. I do apologize for helping him win. Bernie, you could have won. That was my fault. I had two individuals tell me to pick Bernie Sanders, and you would have given me a seat in the American government if I would have sat you in your seat and I would have helped you rather instead. Trump, you had everything. You just needed the words. So basically, aren't those words worth some money rather than kicking to the person to the wayside and knowing that you're doing that, than rather finding out where they came from and saying, I want that individual next to me because he's a great counselor and he gave the best advice for me to get my position? Why would you kick him to the wayside when you get to that spot in that position and for the American people, unless you had underhanded means behind closed doors because he was a holy roller and he was like onto a second comforter, but you didn't want him there? This is something that I don't understand. And I would like anybody to explain that to me, if I'm wrong, being any type of psychology, to explain to me why an individual would take words from another individual, heighten their life, being popularity because they already had everything, into a better position so they can have even more when they already had everything, and then kick them to the wayside, somebody that had really nothing except learned abilities and skills, being talents that made them learn quicker on some subjects in other fields than the average person or the majority of people altogether. Why not give this person a rightful position on your council, no matter what the credentials are, being the words spoke for themselves? Do riddle me out of that. But super delegates, and the electoral college, no offense to any of you, I believe it should be the Americans' vote, the people's vote, not delegates, super delegates, or the electoral college. I believe it should be about the people. But the people can be persuaded away from good information and be given bad information to be seen in a light. Another individual can project themselves with enough money to be seen as somebody else that they aren't really are. And the only way to know that individual is to spend time with them to see who they are, because people that are underhanded and or are dirty can't cover themselves and conceal themselves for long. It'll always come out. I ask you, why didn't you give me a position on your council, being at the round table? I wrote that up. And I'm the one that said Bernie Sanders couldn't win. Hillary Clinton already won. She was already in the government. Her husband was the President of the United States, Bill Clinton. I actually liked Bill Clinton a lot. And then he started looking in the files that he shouldn't look into. I actually didn't mind Hillary Clinton. But I might have said some bad stuff about you that I didn't mean to say. It was just politics, because I was trying to give words to help Trump win. And who wouldn't do that? So I apologize to everybody's feelings that I hurt while I'm being tormented, and you can't tell that this just doesn't seem to stop, and I don't see any end in place. Do not judge me by my cover, judge me by my words. I don't mind you all judging me. If you're weighing me fairly, you should come to a rightful conclusion that I'm a good man, because I always try to do the right things, and I did things blindly with the Trump presidency behind closed doors that ruined my life and ruined my whole family's life and took me down a tunnel that made me defamed and made me look like somebody I'm not when you look at me, given what's being said out there rather from my mouth. I ask all of you to forgive me. Anybody that's listening to this, originally in Florida when I started doing that, people were circling me and waving at me, going through parking lots, and they were thanking me. Cars by the hundred were just going by and waving at me. Police officers, everybody was just circling me and waving at me and being nice. And then shortly after that, given a few months, everything changed and I got kicked to the wayside. And then when I came back after 8 months of studies, that's when I came up with the word denuclearization. And shortly before that, being when I left, the words fake news that circumvented and circulated through the American people. Like I said in a prior video, I'm the one that said that when Sessions' hearing was happening because they brought up fake mumbo jumbo that just wasn't true, so he couldn't be inaugurated in. Why and how would I know most of this, given timelines and frames, if I'm not telling the truth? I ask you all to believe me. And if you need me to debate somebody on something, I don't mind doing that. I do have to restudy some of the things that I learned, being what's been happening to me since 2018 to excruciating circumstances of matters, being I've been taken away from that, and what's going on with the witchcraft and the targeting of me being outside in the world. And anybody can see that if they have lunch with me for an hour with the headlights going by and turning them off, or putting blinkers on me when there's nowhere to turn. So I see all of you and you see me. But what of all are you doing, actually, by persecuting me? I ask you this. And people that don't know about it, I tell you it's true. Have lunch with me, and you'll see it. Because you can't call them all off, because everybody identifies me being what would happen with me with the 2 individuals in Florida. Trump, I deserved a seat at Fox News. At the least. I was never going to ruin you. You should have spoke directly onto me. I wasn't going to do that to you. But being the way I am like a holy roller, but I don't sit there and put my nose in other people's business. I wouldn't be okay with a child being hurt or a woman being abused. I'm not okay with that. There's certain things that I wouldn't stand for. But other things I'm okay with because it's none of my business. But the people, I was making them my business because I wanted their lives better than they are. Then working up a ladder to hope for a few cents or $1 raise every year or few years and trying to support their family and have a family whenever they're picking a job just for mammon funds and it's not fulfilling their life at all. You get one life, and then there's the holy resurrection where you get 1,000 years if you're a saint, but you only get one chance at this. And if you do any other means and you try to go another way, you don't get to stay. I'm apologize for that, but that's the truth.